We're back for 2026 first episode. Congratulations, James. You are it. And I cannot wait to talk about what you do. So, for everybody listening to Sarah Knows Support Workers, can you tell us a little bit more why you wanted to start Evergreen Disability Care?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on the stream. And yes, I can't believe it's 2026. We're already halfway through January. So the reason why I changed from the corporate world and everything and went into disability of all things, I try to keep the story short, but as a lot of people know, I had a very big business career and my youngest daughter got very sick. I sat by her hospital bed for 5 years, actually. It was quite traumatic. But my oldest daughter is severely disabled. And the quality of the care, not to be maligning, because I think working in disability, if you really try to do it well and take it seriously, it's probably the hardest job you're going to have. It's emotional. It takes a lot of physical energy. But I went to go back to work and a really good friend of mine said something to me, "You're not excited about getting back to work." I was one of these silly workaholic guys that was doing 60, 70 hours a week. And I said, and I still remember it now, a decade later, I said, "I just want to do something better." And when I mean better, I mean just better for everybody. And I said, I'm tired of just trying to make money for people that have got money. So I went on this amazing journey. Now, by this time, my life really fell apart. 5 years sitting in a hospital bed. I had no money. I had a marriage breakup, all the terrible things you could think could happen. I had $112 in my bank account. I was selling my furniture to pay the rent.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be one of these people who complains about stuff. I'm going to be someone who actually does something about it. Because one of my pet peeves in my whole life growing up, the people that complain about stuff but never do anything about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I went on from that, and this is how crazy it was, because this is how crazy the story is. So I was working with clients 15 hours a day and designing a business for about 5 hours a night and doing all the book work and things. So I was working like 140 hours a week. I was sleeping for 40 minutes a day, and I did that for like 5.5 years. So it was a crazy story, but I was driven. I really wanted to make a difference. And I know how corny that sounds to people and they think it's some sort of sales pitch, but I don't think you can do that for money. I think you have to really want to make a difference. So after all this time, I made a difference. I run a statewide organization that really does make differences to people's lives. And I know a lot of people do that whole sales pitch, we care and all that sort of stuff, but we're not perfect. But we do a lot of good and really proud of that. And I know a lot of people like to be boastful, but I'm really proud of what we've done.
Because you have your daughter that has a disability, have you been able to, when you were first beginning your company, able to like measure that on what type of support you think, will you believe as a parent and as a business owner that would be of quality?
Well, I don't think you need to have a disabled person to care, right? First of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've been around lots of different companies, lots of different people in the health industry, and I found the quality was lower than expected. And I had realistic expectations. I did not expect anybody to have a magic wand and solve all my family's problems. And there are families out there that do really think you have a magic wand, right? But overall in the industry back then, and I do find it now as well, I would really hate to say, it's hard. It's not perfect. There's a lot of political correctness that gets in the way of actually helping people. I find that very frustrating personally as a parent. So it's all sort of stemmed from that sort of feeling. Now, to answer your actual question, I think we're all just doing the best we can. And if we do the best we can, you'd actually be surprised just how well you can do.
So prior to this, I am nosy. What was your job before the disability sector? What type of businesses were you in?
I had a number of different jobs. I ran a brewery at one stage of all things.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was terrible because I couldn't keep on any weight because I ran from one thing to another. So it was a pretty tough job, really. I was in the communications industry for about 15 years. I worked for large corporations. I did incident management for Telstra for 9/11, actually, which was very interesting time. So I worked at the Global Operations Centre for Telstra for a number of years. I worked at Telstra in the corporate world for about 15 years. I had many other jobs as well, but that was predominantly a large chunk of my actual corporate career. I was working for them. And then I moved across to change management. I was the operational enabled management for manager for Australia. So they were quite decent jobs. I wasn't the CEO of, Vodafone or anything, but I had some really serious jobs. And it was a very big shift after as I told you, my daughter got sick. I couldn't get work. That was a really funny thing. I was taking diplomas out of my resume and everything because when you are at a high level and you had a family member that's been ill and you've left work for a long time, people don't they lose confidence in high level positions. So they don't want to hire you. So it was really an interesting time and a transition. But I'm glad I did what I did in moving into disability. I do think, as opposed to the corporate world, I think that disability was really dysregulated in the beginning. No, it was a cowboy show, and it still is in some regards. But I think I've been lucky, or I guess I've worked hard at making connections with really good people in the industry, people that have high standards but are realistic and great to deal with. I never liked that nepotistic approach people had of, I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back. But that's how all businesses actually work, right? I found the value of networking with people that I trusted. Things didn't become political football every time we had a care team meeting, because if you have people that you're not aligned with, everybody's pointing the finger. Everybody's trying to steal the business. It's really not good. It doesn't serve the client. Participants are the ones that miss out. So I try to align myself with a lot of people these days. Just my personal LinkedIn account has something like 6,000 connections. We run media through our company and all sorts of things. Networking is very important as a business person, but on a personal level, because of what I do that I feel is so important, I feel what I do is more a vocation than a job.
So, with your extensive background, what skills have you been able to bring from your background into opening your NDIS business? Because they do complement each other. And
Sure.
I know for me, being a support worker originally, I never really had a business background. So, there's a lot of things that I've had to learn to be a business owner. What did you bring from your business background to your business?
Yeah, it's a great question, because people have this assumption, because you're in allied health or disability, that you're not a business person. You've just got to care about people, and that's all you need. You need a number of things. You need to have a really good business background or business understanding. You need to really care about people to actually do the job, but you need to actually have the skills as a support worker. We train our staff extensively to do these jobs. A lot of companies don't do the in-depth analysis on their clients beforehand. We have a lot of things like that. My business background's really quite interesting because I've had some really decent jobs, right? So I don't have an MBA. I base nearly everything I do business-wise on the golden rules of business. So much so that I actually have a book out, the 101 Golden Rules of Business, because it's a very old philosophy of how to run businesses. These are proven things that have been around for a long time. One of the people that actually inspired me to get into more of a business type mindset when I was younger. I worked for a company called Send Data, and the guy that ran it was a guy called Jim Grossett, and he was an old style business guy. He didn't coach me or mentor me, but I did ask him lots of questions throughout the time I knew him. I then, upon his advisement, I went and did night school for a couple of years while I was working. It was a waste of time, but I learned that if you tried hard and put your nose to the grindstone in the right way, you could be successful at almost anything. And business is one of them. So that's what got me into my business mindset. I did many courses working in the corporate world about how to do certain things in the business world. But I honestly judge everything I do off the 101 golden rules, or the golden rules of business. It's tried, it's tested, it works. And I actually got a pre-release of my book out right now for free for people who just want to see how old school businesses work. And I found in the modern world, I think we're losing a lot of the networking skills, the old skills that we have that work. People I deal with these days are more looking at short-term business, not long-term relationships, and running a business, successful. I run a multi-million dollar business, as people know. It is have to have a long-term vision to make it work. And I think that's why a lot of businesses now, especially in our sector, are failing.
So, when you talk about a long term vision, how do you do it? Like, is it one thing that you're around the home one day doing something and go, click, oh, I wouldn't mind doing that for my business. Maybe I can expand on that. Or is it a little bit deeper where you go into research mode? How do you get to that point where your long term vision is for your company?
So every business needs to pivot and do things short term. So I think a classic example that I teach to people is, there's a gap right now. There's a gap with holidays. Holidays are very lucrative for companies for disabled people. A lot of people can't manage the risk. You have to act very quickly. That heightens your risk if you act very quickly on anything without analysis or sorting it out or thinking about how to do it. Long-term strategies makes businesses more solid. You don't have a short win, but you have a long-term win. So a long-term win in this example, as opposed to the short-term holiday, which is very lucrative, by the way, financially. Long-term, you'll have someone 10 hours a week for the next 5 years, right? That's a long-term thought. But with these long-term things, it's not just about clients or revenue streams. It's about cash flows, profit margin versus the money that comes through. You can have a business that puts $10 million through the books and still go broke. So you've got to think about training. You've got to think about how the business operates. You've got to think about integrity. I think you have to think about, I don't know how to explain it in a simple way. You should read the book. You have to think about people over profit. You hear that a lot, but people don't understand it. You've got best values in getting people on board. Even before you try to sell them anything, give them a value. Make that value worth more than they're going to pay. Long term, be a communication company, have integrity, get people to trust you, be a known entity. All these things set your business up for long-term success.
Have long-term success, what type of leader in your company do you try to be? Because we all try to do our very best. Have you got a preferred type of leader, or is it something that most of us would just give it a crack and hope for the best?
Well, look, there's a real value in doing things and trying things and putting yourself out there to do it. I think it actually genuinely takes a lot of things to be a good leader. First of all, you need to be the person that's prepared to do whatever you ask people to do. So if you're asking them to jump off a cliff, you've got to be prepared to be the first person to jump off. You've got to assess all the risks that you get your staff to do. I think a really big one for me is to empower people. I empower my staff to make decisions. So I don't just tell people, this is your job role and this is your scope, and punch out 20 nails a day, right? That's not how to have a successful company. Now, that's not how to have a successful company, even if you've got a guy that punches out 20 nails a day. You have to have a different mindset to how you treat these people. You got to treat them how you want to treat them. You got to tell the truth, even when it's not convenient. You've got to train them to complete the roles that you want. You've got to set them up for success. You've got to set them real time frames. You've got to show them how to do things, mentor them, make them want to come to you, even if they've made a mistake. People can come to me, and I've had people come to me and say, oh, sorry, boss, I've lost this $10,000. I'll pack my bags. Learning experiences for your staff matter. Now, that person that came to me, in other business structures or business companies, they would have tried to hide what they were doing. They wouldn't have wanted to get in trouble. They wouldn't have wanted to lose their job. It's about culture as well. You really do have to be a good human to have the good culture, but you have to have all the business skills that people trust in what you're doing, believe in your vision. You have to be very clear about your vision, and you have to be very clear how we're going to get that bus to that next bus stop.
You said something that really hit, and I hope you don't mind me. I'm totally off topic, but one thing that I had learned over my period of time, and especially with managing staff members in our sector, is that I would never align somebody or pair people up if I wouldn't do and support that person myself. And it speaks volumes of you and your company that, like you said, that if you wouldn't do it, why would you expect others to?
I look, and I learned a very long time ago, and I was told this by a very smart person, there's going to be no one like you in your company. Because, I worked crazy hours and did all crazy stuff, but I support my staff, and I know that I can call my team day or night if I had to do things for me because they're on the bus. I think once you don't want, worker bees are very important for some organizations or industries, right? I don't want worker bees. I want people that are part of it, and I bring them in to be part of it, and I engage them to be part of it, and I get them to buy into it. And like I was saying before, the way I get them to buy into it, I give them power. I give them decision-making rights. Now, I may veto them if I think it's not correct or whatever, but I'll tell them why I'm not going to go with it. But once you get people feeling part of something rather than just rocking up 9 to 5 and serving coffees for people and then you go home and the owner doesn't really care about anything you do or any value you add, it's just a money-making machine, they get disenfranchised. People get disenfranchised very easily in our industry because they're in the field. You're not there with them, and you do get bad behaviors as well. I'm not denying that part of it. But if they feel that you have them close to your chest, they'll want to be part of it. Like I have carers who will turn up a minute late because of traffic and be ringing me apologizing. Now, I don't want them to apologize to me, but that's opposed to other companies that they rock up half an hour late and won't even try to tell you. It's because they're part of it. Now, here's another classic example. I had a carer come from another company recently. They'd been in the industry for a decade. Great carer. We do a thing we call a safety check, not a police safety check, but we bring up, make sure they're there on site. We know they're there because we track them, right? But we make sure they're there on site. The person that they're looking after, there's no problems. They got all the files. They had all the training. But we make sure that they know that we're listening. And our staff will tell us if there's something unusual, not just in a shift note or not just something to cover themselves. Now, this particular lady, she got called a couple of times and she said to the office, she said, "Why are you always checking up on me? I'm doing a good job, blah, blah, blah." And we turned around and said to her, "We know where you are. We know what you're doing, but we want to make sure that we're looking after you, because if we look after you, you're looking after the client." And her whole mindset, you could hear it change. I was listening in the office to the lady who was speaking to her, and you could just hear the whole mindset change in this lady. And those sort of things that you pay attention to. I've got staff that have been with me since the beginning. That's not because I pay $1 million an hour. I pay very well, don't get me wrong, but it's because of how they feel. They feel part of it and they feel valued.
Yeah, so many things there, because I'm somebody that was a lead of service at one point, and checking in on support workers was a norm somewhere in between when I've been out and about doing what I do best. That wasn't the norm for support workers. And I find that wild, because I agree with you. Happy support workers do more and willing to do more for you. And the more happier a support worker is, the more support and hours you can give them as a company, the likelihood that you retain them, and the turnover is not so high because they got what they needed, and that validation as well.
It's more than money. Like, people being people, it's more than money. Like, you have to pay people well. Don't make that the reason people leave, by not paying them what they're worth. There's something I always think of when I have a really good worker, right? And this is a manager or a team leader mindset that just still baffles me to this day, because I see it all the time. Let's take two workers. You've got Johnny, who rocks up late to every shift, doesn't do things properly, doesn't read the documents. You're always like on his back to get him to do the job. You'll expect Johnny to just rock up late. It's a known thing. But what happens when I've got you as my best worker that's always on time, does the extra, stays back if they need to? It's never an issue to do an extra shift to cover someone. When they take a day that they're late, these managers that I see that aren't managing correctly jump on them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've had this expectation. So we do set expectations as people, but you've got to manage up and you've got to manage down. If you're at any level in a company above someone else, you've got to manage up and manage down. So you've got to meet expectations of the people above you, but you've got to have a voice. So one thing in the corporate world that used to drive me insane, I'd have all this responsibility, but no decision rights. And I learned that having decision rights and a voice makes these people really enamored with the organization. They see it more than just a job. Now, I listen to people that are in the field. In my position, some people would think that's not appropriate. People come to me with ideas, right? I may shoot the idea down. I dispense ideas all the time that I don't think are going to work. And I'll explain to people why they are or not going to work. I had a very honest conversation with one of my team today. They wanted to go one way with a client. I explained to them why it wasn't good business decisions to do what the client wanted. What the client wanted was ridiculous. But we could have taken the tact of doing it. But if we did it, that client would have been asking for this ridiculous stuff all the time. So I shut it down. Now, if I had a company where people were afraid to tell me what they thought, or I wanted to walk into a room where everybody says yes, that person wouldn't have put the ideas to me, right? Now, if they've got better ideas than me, I'm running with it. Stand on the shoulders of giants. You don't have to always reinvent the wheel. And you know what? You may be the most learned person in a room, but if you've got a better idea, we're going with it.
So with that, how do you make sure that the people that you support stay the center of every decision? Because I know support workers can come to you and your managers, and I'm not quite sure what you call each person in each sector, like your sector of your business. How do you keep it that it stays client focused in decision making?
That's a really good question. It's hard. And I'll tell you why it's hard. We do a lot of pre-prep onboarding processes. We find out what people like to do, what they need, what their disabilities are, what they're trying to achieve. We have a lot of things we talk about and try to go for directions in. One of the directions we do is we tell people we want them to live the life they want. Now, a lot of companies preach capacity building and community access. They don't do it. A lot of them don't do it. A simple thing is someone wants to make a sandwich but can't cut the sandwich because they've got that premise. A lot of companies out there will just go, okay, I'll make the sandwich for you. And sometimes you may have to, right? We'll find a solution, get a silicon knife, help them how to cook, whatever it may be. So you have to listen to clients. One of the biggest things I think we do as a company, and this is something I teach to people, be a communication company first. I don't care if you're a roof tiler, you're in allied health, let people know where you are, what you can do, but listen to the people and what they want, and then tell them what you can do. Under promise and over deliver is a very important thing in business. So there's quite a few things you can do to stay client centric. Now, here's the flip side. There's a lot of people in our sector, clients, participants, and they don't have the decision making abilities to be making good decisions with things. That's the honest truth, right? They may want to do something that's just like crazy, right? It might be unsafe. Now, in our sector, as a lot of people know, you have dignity of risk and duty of care. So dignity of risk is allowing them to do anything anybody else would normally want to do. And the duty of care is to step in and see if it is really dangerous or something that they shouldn't be doing, be the voice to talk to their advocates, their care team, their guardians. And I think a big problem in this industry, we talk about client-centric, but what does that look like in the real world? I come across people and a client says, I want to, just do something really dangerous. And the care team go, oh, yeah, it's their choice. Or we know they need care every day of the week to make sure they go into the bathroom, and they say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need anything. And they're peeing the bed. So it's a really tough balancing act. I think treating people with dignity is very, very important. I think probably 20 years ago, it wasn't even a consideration making it client-centric in any way. I think it is now, but I think people's understanding of it, I think the biggest problem is people are worrying about the risk to them as an organization and forgetting to actually make the person's life better.
Do you know what over my period of time that I found really hard to engage with, and I think I am, or I'll say I am, quite a communicator. I always found it really difficult when I have an NDIS participant, but then they've got the support coordinator, then they've got allied health services, then we've got families, and sometimes felt like the missing part was we weren't together working together for that person's well-being or having a whole life approach. How do you manage that type of stuff in and out of your team? Because it is difficult, and especially if you're like us, we're communicating people that would love to have a chin wag, but also like to have people informed. How do you deliver a service like that?
Well, I think it's a balancing act. I remember a really famous thing where I was at a TAC work cover care team. There was 20 people at this care team, right? It was bigger than Ben-Hur. And they all had their own directions they wanted to take things in. And people that know me, I'm quite respectful, but I'm certainly not shy. And I said to them, look, there's 20 of you people here and we're still not meeting what the client wants. I said, so you've all got your own agendas and you've all got your own perspectives. And I'll tell care team people what I think. And traditionally, as a disability support work person, you're supposed to be the toilet cleaner. That's how they see you in a lot of cases. We spend 90% of the time with the clients. We're the ones at the coalface. So it's very frugal opinion on our skills and our knowledge to not listen. So I piped up and got what the client needed. So there's a whole lot of dichotomies that you have to take into play, how disability support workers are interacting, how the care teams are interacting. Client-centric is really, it's an unknown thing for a lot of people how to really attack it. So my goal when I think of it and how I'm going to emplace it is this. Most people think client-centric is taking someone to the pool, sitting there playing on their phone, watching them in the pool to do their OT, even though we've got an OT plan for them to do exercises or whatever. My client-centric idea is to get in the pool with them, like we should. And then 12 months down the track, that person's more ambulatory, they're happier, they're healthier. So it's really getting them, and this is what I said before, living the lives they want, but working the steps to get there, and especially if they can't do that themselves. And giving them options. You want to play guitar? Okay, we'll get you lessons. In over a year, we'll see how that happens, and you can practice and get better and better. Whereas a lot of companies, especially in our field, oh yeah, you go do that, and we don't care how it turns out. It's very narrow vision. So you've got to look long term. Are you helping them live the lives they want? Are you helping them improve and get the skills they need to be there? And that's called capacity building. And that's so overused by people that don't do capacity building.
Did you get this mindset? Because it would not have, I hope you don't mind, but you've had a background in business, and a lot of the conversation that we're having tonight is about building skills for long term for the people that we serve to have to be as independent as possible. How did you get to that point? Because I find sometimes not every business owner understands that point or gets to that point where it's about the long term goal of getting people as independent as possible.
Look, I think a lot of people confuse one thing, and this is where I think a lot of people go wrong. And this is good carers too. I'm not having a go. They think that them coming in and washing someone's dishes is making their life better. Now, you may have to come in and wash someone's dishes, but teaching someone how to do the dishes makes them more independent, makes them more capable to do their own thing. And it's the same thing a lot of carers fall into the habit with friends. It'll be on the support plan. Oh, I'm Jimmy and I'm a bit different and I can't make friends and blah, blah, blah. I want a carer that's going to be my friend. Carers move on. Carers aren't your friends. They may be professional and really care about you, but they should be looking at doing capacity building, taking you to groups, making sure you have pathways to make friends, teaching you skills to have friends. So I think it's very complicated. And to answer your actual question, I'm the parent of a severely disabled person. So I built a lot of strategies because back in the early days before NDIS, the government was like, "Oh, you're doing a good job as a parent. Just keep it up." And, that was it.
Yeah.
So when I got into this, I went and saw every expert I could. Jeff Ellery, all these different people. I had a lot of different ideas about how to change things. Classic case, one of my very first clients, there was a big talk back then about being non-maleficent. Don't force people to do things they don't want to do. Don't force eye contact. I went and saw all the specialists. I had a client back then who wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't let anybody in the room, wouldn't let anybody in the house, kicked, bit, screamed, the whole bit, right? At a special school, been in the system for years. So I went and spoke to the experts, ran millions of different ideas by all the experts back in the day, and figured out what I could and couldn't do. I still use a lot of those things to this day. So here's a classic one that we use. I don't even know if anybody else uses it. If you have say an autistic client or a person with phobias, PTSD, anxieties, as someone who's been a support worker, it's hard to get them out of the house because they're trepidatious, right? Turn up on time, never turn up late because you're going to make that person anxious. We drive to our staff when we train them. Zumba. What does doing Zumba for 5 minutes do? It creates endorphins, lowers anxiety. You have a social plan or social story to get that person simple steps of what they want to achieve at the shops. Sounds basic, right? I don't come across companies that do it. So I ran a lot of these things by experts in the early days. I came up with a lot of my own theories. Just today, I was on a care team meeting with a person who can't regulate sleeping. And it's so bad that they get the carers, "Oh, don't come at 9, come at 11. Don't come at 11, come at 8. This has been going on for a while, so they don't sleep. So I said in the care team meeting, I spoke to them about the circadian rhythm and sleeping and cortisol waking people up and melatonin. And I asked some medical questions and they're all looking at me like, "You're not a doctor." No, I'm not a doctor, but I did some research. Another big thing we put into place with people that need to have better sleeping patterns, besides actually having a structure and plan on what they're doing when, is we make sure they ease into sleeping. You can't just turn a switch all the time and go to sleep because you've had a melanin tablet. And I asked them, what's their diet like? And they're all looking at me strange, like, why are you asking? Cheese. You know the old myth about drinking milk? That's rubbish. Cheese is packed full of melatonin. I have people that have been insomniacs. Care teams are pulling their hair out. This actual person actually has a sleep specialist. They don't eat cheese.
So I hope you don't mind me asking this question because back in the heyday, you are a parent of a child with a disability. So you've gone from block funding to NDIS funding.
Yeah, so my child has NDIS funding, yeah.
Have you noticed a difference in the amount of support that you have now to what you had previously? And a lot of people I find very quick to talk about all the woes of the NDIS, but nobody actually talks about the fact that people get a lot more than they've ever had.
Okay. I'd like to answer that in a few stages.
Go for it. Hope you don't
My
mind me
daughter-
picking your brain. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's
And
intriguing.
when the NDIS came out, I actually read the legislation. I read the whole legislation because I had to quote the NDIS when they were telling me something wrong, what it was. Back then they didn't want to give people the option to go exercise, right? So I think it was page 6, paragraph 4 that they had the right to exercise. I did read it. So here's about the NDIS what I like. And my daughter's funding's the same, by the way, because I keep fighting for it. 1 in 3 people now are losing funding, right?
Yeah,
And it's a big deal.
it's huge.
About the NDIS, though, and I'll tell you why it's good and why it's gone wrong. It's not all bad news. I read the NDIS structures and everything. I think there was 3 of them that did it in the beginning, wasn't there? Bill Shorten, and I can't remember the other guys' names, but I've spoken to Bill a few times. He's actually quite a smart and caring person, by the way, just as a side note. It was basically built on the tax system structuring of how things work. It was built as a real insurance model, not one of these ones where they cut your coverage, but a real actual insurance model, one that was actually built to serve people while they needed it, right? Then what happened? You had the commission get involved. And I'm not knocking everybody at the commission, but you have the NDIS and the commission, just 2 separate bodies that don't even know what each other's doing. So that's going to cause a conflict in itself, right? They had a lot of shortcomings, and their media plan for that was to slam every provider as a bad provider. And that's why service providers became, from being shining knights, we should go to a barbecue, you look after handicapped people, you're a god, right? Now, if I tell someone that at a party, you just want to make money and you just want to treat people like rubbish and blah, blah, blah. That's because of the media. But I think the government has driven a bit of that to protect themselves. We're going to crack down on fraudsters. Here's the reality, right? I can't get away with fraud. All right. I'm fully registered for the NDIS, TSE, work cover, SSR audits, financial audits, you name it. So ask yourself how these people are getting away with fraud. They're just simply not giving the proper service and cutting corners. I built a number of policies, processes, strategies, implementations. It costs me money to do it properly. So the thing that rubs me the wrong way is when they say every provider's bad or unethical. That's horsepucky. It was a fantastic system. The system hasn't been managed correctly. That's the real issue now. And I don't want to point fingers at individuals, but I think the way it is run, if I ran my business like that, I'd be closing shop tomorrow, because it's just absolutely, and big organizations and government organizations, I'll tell you now, they're big, they're top heavy, they have big structures. The NDIA, NDIS have realized this in some fashion, and they're trying to make everything as automated as possible. You've got assessors who don't even know what a disability is, overriding OT report. So the best advice I give people when they do fight for their funding, have as many official doctor's assessments, specialist assessments, so that when you go there, and when you go there now, they have a bit of paper now that looks totally different to the old NDIS plan with all these points why you can't use your money. That's how they do it. And they tell you what you're going to get. So you used to get 100,000, you're now getting 35,000. So if you go there with your proper funding modeling, as in doctor's reports, no, I haven't gotten better, I'm not going to magically get better from autism. And in the early days, when they decided they wanted to save money in the early days, I had to reprove my daughter was autistic, which was just ludicrous. Because, I mean, if they could wave a magic wand and make her not autistic, I'd be all for that. But they're going through that cycle again. We're going through that cycle now where they're trying to save money. And it's happening on a non-linear way now. If someone's really deep in the industry, you will see TAC, work cover, NDIS, major alignments over the last 2 or 3 years with pricing even. They're also doing the stopped cross-funding. So here's a little thing a lot of people don't know. If I'm entitled to TAC and NDIS, and one of those pools needs to be funded for my housing, what happens is they'll deny one of those pools for you to get into, because they don't want to use 2 funding pools, even though legally you're entitled to them. Now, here's another complication, and this is why I mention it. I'm fully registered for TAC work cover. I'm a multi-million dollar business. I meet all the criteria to have a TAC work cover license. They won't give it to me. You want to know why?
Tell me.
Because what happened is big companies like Scope, etc., got given houses to do DFFH and TAC and work cover, right? That funding's now ending.
Yes.
So you're going to have a big problem now with SIL housing. And NDIS thought they would cover themselves by changing all the rules around SIL housing. Most people that invest in property in the disability sector, they do SDA housing, because that's where the money is. If you're going to invest $1 million, you've got to make some return. I don't expect people not to be business people as well. So the incident reporting now in housing is so astronomical that people don't want to do it, right? So you're going to have a big problem now with housing. I envisage in the next 2 to 5 years, still housing is, you're going to see a lot of disabled people on the street. I don't think they're going to give companies money for housing, but they're trying to get rid of the smaller players out of NDIS, TSM work cover. Take house cleaning, for example. Company like mine would lose $7 an hour by cleaning your house. Now, we've worn the cost for a long time because the margins allowed us to. The big companies can put in a one-page form to get paid more. I've had meetings with the two guys that do the TAC and work cover funding, and they've told me no. I had meetings with them. I found out who they were, and I said, look, you keep wanting us to clean people's houses, but I'm losing money. Can't you just bump it up? So there's a lot of things in the industry, like any industry, that if you delve into it, you can go, it's not kosher. But I'd really like to believe in the goodness of people personally. I like to give people the benefit to make mistakes. I like to give people the benefit to do better. But I also support them, train them, guide them, mentor them, and make sure they're in an environment where I try to set them up for success. So as an example, if I have, and we don't shy away from high intensity clients. A lot of companies are these days. They won't deal with them. So I make sure if I've got someone who's not experienced, there's no way I'm putting them with a super high intensity client, especially someone with behaviors of concern. But when I do have staff that I know can do the job and they're trained to do the job, I won't just drop them in with the high intensity clients 7 days a week. We normally try to have people that are working like full-time type hours with 3 clients, someone who is high intensity, fine, but we have someone in the mix there that's easier. And that gives you longevity with the staff, and you stop that whole burnout structure that I see in our sector. I see a lot of people that get into the industry, and I would probably say 6 out of 10 don't last 12 months. And that's not because they don't care. That's because the company they work for doesn't spend dollars in EAP, doesn't invest time in training them, doesn't support them. Because every time one of my people ring one of my staff members, that's time they could be doing something else to make dollars revenue streaming for me. So you've got to equate longevity. And this is where that whole long-term vision comes in that we were talking about earlier. You've got to invest in the long term. And all these things seem intangible, but if you really think about it, if you want to be nitty gritty, there is a dollar amount at the end of it, but there's also being a proper human being to get there. And once you have people buying into that, for me as a leader, I can ask them to do all sorts of things that they may have thought, he just wants to make money or, that sort of thing. They come along for the journey.
So with your experience, and like you said, you reckon that's like 6 out of 10, is it now a good time, anybody that's listening to the podcast, is it a good time to open up an NDIS business in 2026?
Honestly, you have to diversify. You can't do just NDIS anymore.
Yeah. So you said that you did TAC, or you do parts of, you don't do the full TAC. You do NDIS.
I do most of it. I do pretty much everything except they won't give me housing rights. And I'm entitled to housing rights.
So is that under TAC, or is that a SIL provider?
No. There's ways to do SIL. There's a lot of things in our industry that I think we could improve. But at the same time, like I've said earlier in the interview, I hate people that don't want to fix it and just complain about it. So I try to fix things. I try to give people information, whether it be clients, participants, staff, management, other companies. Up until last year, I used to have on our website a total e-learning section for free to teach other companies how to teach their staff. And it came about that we actually started to give it for free because we used to have, say, a high intensity client. We'd do some of the shifts. Another company would do some of the shifts because the support coordinator said it's better to have 7 companies. Now, that's not true, by the way. But
I know it's not true. I've lived it.
You're taking other people's mistakes, liabilities, and risks because they don't even give you a shift note. You don't know what happened to the client that day. So we actually got to the point where we actually started to offer them free training. We try to avoid working with other companies, but sometimes they just say, no, you have to work with the other company. But we make it very clear from the get-go, we're not accepting their risk. So for instance, if we're working with a client from 9 to 5 and they're working from 5 to 10 or whatever it is, we don't accept that risk. And we put it in writing to them now. And it makes people listen and they go, oh, but you're just trying to duck shove. It's like, well, if I'm not there and no one's telling me what's happened, how can I accept that risk? You need a process, or the other company needs a process to manage that risk if you think this is a high risk client. And we do what I call a DSW report. I think we're the only company in Australia that does it. I actually regularly write reports for other companies and OTs and for assessments and planning. When you're going for planning, you got to have things written down, because if it's just verbal, you will get nothing and they'll take money off you. So we provide these reports. Now, a lot of OTs, etc., will have a QR code. You do a Google thing and they do pattern matching, right? I still find it inefficient. It's actually better for a human to go through the shift notes, see the patterns where we've made gains, where we've lost gains. I will write a report,
Yeah.
give it to the support coordinator. And not all support coordinators are created equal. Some people don't have the experience. They need me to be part of the care team and actually step up and do what I should be doing and help them and tell them. And like I said before, because we're the ones that are there most of the time.
Yeah.
And I say this to people when they get a bit snotty and they think I'm just trying to be on my soapbox. But that's really how it is. And personally, I'd want someone to give me the report.
It's setting people up to fail. I'm somebody that's big into like notes and journals or whatever wherever in your sector, whatever you name it. I'm somebody that loves to read them and spot the pattern recognition, especially with people with complex behaviors of support, because there are signs and there are patterns and it does show. And you can put that together with technology these days. It really isn't that hard to write one. So the excuse is no longer there.
Yeah, there's no excuses there anymore, whether you're doing a QR code thing or whatever. But the thing, this is the thing that I think the nuance between the QR code Google type thing as opposed to the DSW report. We train our staff that they don't have to write, I went to the shop and had an ice cream. Johnny had an ice cream. We train them to only keep the thing brief, what's working, what's happened that's not working, what they may have identified that we may need to investigate, how that's panning out in the shift with the person. Often a lot of these things are 3 lines long, but the data I can pull out of that, reading that month's worth of reports, I can go, okay, there's a trigger for this person. They don't like the pool. They love the pool, but every time they get there, they play up. Why? It's too noisy. Or water's the tactile sensation of the water, or and then we can identify what's happening. And a lot of the times it's just purely common sense.
Yep, it's a part of a support worker's role to do them. It's no ifs, no buts. It's a
But we
requirement.
train them because not all ducks can swim on water day one. So you have to set your staff up for success.
But also the standard of what's expected as well, that it is an expectation as a support worker. We require this to make sure that we've got the right supports in play for this person, because what you enter actually creates a bigger picture when it comes time where families or guardians or support coordinators need that extra detail to be able to submit these plans to the NDIS for funding reviews, all sorts.
Yeah. And with staff, I think a lot of the care team meetings I go to, and if I have a staff member there or I have a staff member involved, I set very clear guidelines with the care team about their value. And they're not just a silent party sitting in the back of the room. I want them to ask them questions. I want them to engage them. I want them to set an expectation of what they're hoping they can achieve and why and how. Another thing that we've been doing probably in the last year, you'll have like an OT or someone come out and instruct our staff how to use a wheelchair or something, right? We'll give our staff a link to the actual wheelchair and work out how to use it if they need to refresh it as well. A lot of companies don't do anything like that. But what I'm doing now is I'm asking the OTs, etc., permission to do what we call soundbite clips. So just like a little 1-minute clip on how to do the important part of something. Now, why do I do it? It's not just for the refresher for the staff. What happens if I have 3 staff with someone, there's super high intensity, one of the staff decides they're going to fly over and live in Spain. I've got a new staff member I could need someone straight away if someone's had a medical incident or something. Now, I do backup staff in the way we roster. We make sure we have people that have already met the person, already know about them. We can say, hey, John, you're going to this person today because the other person has had a car accident or whatever it might be. But we're now asking the OTs, and they were very hesitant probably a year or 2 ago about doing these little soundbite clips because, and you probably can figure out why they didn't want to do it. It stops them from coming out earning dollars and retraining. But I do encourage them now very strongly so we don't lose continuity of service with the client to allow us to do these clips. And these clips really do help a new staff member that might be very competent but hasn't worked with this person. They've been called in for an emergency. Everybody, all the backups are busy and we need to use someone who might be very experienced but doesn't know the client. They'll read the client notes and all that sort of stuff. A few soundbite clips, and they're not stuck and they're feeling more comfortable too. And that's a really big part of it, especially with high needs clients. You don't want to be doing the wrong thing. I
I
remember,
did it, James. What you were talking about, I've done it, and maybe I was a bit more mean and assertive about it, but it was a expectation, and for me, it was a multiple reasons, but it was to make sure that the person that we serve is safe. And if they're safe and I can guarantee that the staff members were trained and they were safe too, because if I couldn't guarantee that both parties weren't safe, then I didn't want to see it. It wasn't for me because that would keep me up in the middle of the night, that type of stuff. So I'm all for it. And I get what you're saying when they're not wanting to do it. But at the end of the day, when I was having some very difficult conversations with allied health people, it was to serve that person the best way possible. And by doing that, I require this as a provider to make sure that anybody that I send in the front door of that person had the best quality support whatsoever. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm for it, and I've done it, and it does work. So as a provider, we can ask those questions of allied health because they're there to deliver as well. To
and how
keep
you present it, how you present it to them really makes a big difference. If they don't think you're trying to take over their ship, because historically, I've been to uni, I know everything. Well, that's not really necessarily the case. Sometimes experience can be a big factor. Sometimes the fact that I really did go and talk to all the experts, Professor Tung, Jeff Ellery. I went and had meetings with these people. I read every book. I did everything. I developed a million theories. So not everything I ever thought of would fly. But if you've got someone who's put that much effort into trying to see these things for what they are, and they're presenting to you in a very professional, and I'm always professional with these people, it's very rare that I wouldn't be professional, but we're all at different stages of the journey. And I say to the care teams now, I want to be an active member of the care team. I want to be your eyes and ears. I want to bounce ideas off you, and I want you to tell me what's appropriate. But, and I tell them, our staff are there. Let us help you. When you present it like that, more and more people come on board as the care teams these days. I think the mindset's changing purely because there's a lot of new people in the industry coming out of uni, and they are now more appreciative of the value you add. Whereas just a few years ago, if you talk to someone, support workers, don't worry about them. They're all crap. They never turn up. But I think it's slowly changing. And I think it's the good providers that are really shining the light on a lot of these things, not just with care teams, but with other providers.
Yep.
I called a CEO of a company out for gouging a client. They couldn't afford Saturdays, and I just put my foot down. I said, no. Now, in this industry, as you know, a lot of people will go, oh, I'm going to put a complaint in with the NDIS if you get in my way. I have it happen to me all the time. I actually had to go to the NDIS about this, which was ridiculous because I'm protecting a very vulnerable client who doesn't have an advocate, right? And this guy was using their funding that they didn't really have, and he's a CEO of a very big company. Like, this can cause a very big business issue.
Yeah.
And he thought he was going to bulldoze me by threatening me. And he lost, of course, because I just wasn't having a bar of it. But I had to have a meeting with the NDS about it. I've had to have meetings with the NDS about clients getting sunburn.
Yeah, yeah. But it's I know it's common sense stuff. Like I and it's so frustrating because you feel like you're spending all this time on things that shouldn't I shouldn't have to have a meeting on. And it's just like, yeah, it feels like a waste of time. But if I don't do it, then the same thing happens and it repeats itself. So I don't know about you, James, but I'm somebody that really loves small problems and I like to squash them because I never have an opportunity to be a big one.
Look, and we're very preventative. We're very proactive. Thankfully, we did a whole summer scheme of keeping people safe and all that sort of stuff. We actually rolled out training on how to deal with environmental things such as cold weather, hot weather, hydration. Now, that saved us, right? Because we had been proactive. But, I've had meetings with the NDIS. At one stage, I had 5 meetings with the commission. They called me aggressive because I said to them, these claims are just not even realistic. Some lady was saying we wanted to control her life. She had a mental illness. It was very obvious that she had a mental illness. What she was claiming was just ludicrous stuff. And I said to them, look, this is my 5th meeting about this. We've done nothing but assist this person. So there's that big thing where a lot of companies I deal with companies bigger than us who aren't registered for these very reasons.
Yeah, that's yeah, for another day.
for another day.
We can make like a whole podcast on it.
Well, I'm trying to give you 3 podcasts in one. But as you can tell, you like people in the industry and yourself know, I don't shy away from the truth. I'm very diplomatic and I am a
Yeah,
businessman. I do good business acumen and all the rest of it. But I'm not afraid to call things out when I think we should just be trying to do better.
yeah, especially when it affects somebody's ability to live a normal life and an ordinary one instead of sinking funds into something that's not realistic, let alone, yeah, like draining somebody's funds completely, like you said before. I do have a question for you. How many NDIS participants do you serve in your company?
I won't give you exact numbers because that's a business thing, but it's
Yeah,
only 24% now,
yeah. And how many support workers do you have?
under 100.
Under 100. That's quite big. I'm not a math.
I think in the scheme of things, we're small to medium.
Yeah. If I'm mathsing the way that I'm mathing. So how do people come to you like NDIS participants? Is it through referrals from support coordinators? Is it websites? Is it social media? Is it from a friend? What's the way that they come to you as to be a provider of choice?
Revenue streaming. That should be in my business coaching course, revenue streaming. It is.
Yeah.
I'll actually answer it. So in the old days, you used to have to go through support coordinators.
Yeah.
You used to have to buddy up with the support coordinator and just knock their socks off with how good you did. Then very early on in the piece, support coordinators realized they had a lot of power, aligned themselves with a particular person or particular company. A lot of the times there were financial incentives, and I don't offer anything other than coming to lunch with me or something like that. I don't give trips to Fiji. I don't give a movie, a theatre
Mm.
ticket. So I don't put people up at the Crown Casino. These are the things I've been told that I can have a $1 million client. Very tempting for a lot of people. A lot of companies in the early stages, plan managers used to ask for 8%. Big plan manager companies, I'm not going to name them on the podcast. They used to do agreements with people. Some of the big job boards used to ask for a gratuity if they gave you a client. Now you're paying to be on their board where clients find providers. There's a lot of funny things in every industry. And to get to the next part of the question, I build relationships. OTs have their own particular people they want to deal with and companies that they deal with. Sadly, like I said, a lot of it's about money. It's not about the quality of the provider. That's the bit that really ticks me off. But I find if you give crazy knockout service, you make the OT or the support coordinator's life so easy.
Yep.
They just go, oh my God, this company's just like so helpful and good quality. I will tell someone else about them. Parents do not tell other parents like they used to because they don't want to discuss their private lives. In the early days, parents used to say, oh, this company's great. He's looking after my son. And then you get a lot of word of mouth. I think in the future, you're going to see branding being the thing, not just sales or sales funneling, branding. So I deal on networking with people,
Yeah.
and you have to have real integrity for people to want to keep dealing with you.
Could see that because I like from our experience in our conversations between LinkedIn, I could see that you're very much on par and your company in that sense because it is. But like the ability to keep going with networking, and it's not just about the sale part with networking, it's also remembering things and moving things for the better good for somebody.
Yeah, look, and like I said, the whole idea of having friends in the care team, it's not just a business thing. It's really a good way to serve the client because you can actually have honest conversations. Not everything's a political football. People can focus on helping the client, even if it's not, PC correct. So, and there's a reality to that for the client because you're going to service them better. If you can do that, and I never begrudge making someone, you know, have a living and earn a living and things like that because, the amount of hours that I've put in, I still work 80 hours a week, right? So, and I don't get paid. Like, I mean, honestly, I should be getting paid $200,000 a year easily. I actually invest, and I'm not going to paint myself as a saint. I actually put a lot of that money back into helping people if you want to know the honest truth.
Yep.
I support all sorts of things that I normally don't talk about. And this year, someone actually said to me, you need to start promoting this, if not to promote your business, to promote the fact that other companies should be getting involved. So we sponsor just the sports parts alone that we sponsor, multiple lawn bowls, basketball leagues, soccer leagues, We never used to promote it. I promote it a little bit more now because I want other companies to get involved in supporting their community. And it's not that you're making money and you need to put money back. It's that you're part of that community and you should be part of the ethos of us all being in the one direction. That's what
Does
I
it
want to.
feel does it feel good when you do it?
Often it's a bit of a drain, to be honest, but I'll tell you a good story. We support one very big basketball league here in Victoria. And it was a Friday night, and I was invited to, go to the awards thing and watch the games for the finals. And I was tired. I'd been working that day since about 3 a.m. And I went there. And when my daughter did basketball, they didn't even have tops. I saw the jerseys that I'd sponsored and all this other stuff. And one of these, you have to say all inclusivity now. The term changes in 5 minutes. But he came up to me and goes, "Who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you always sitting here?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, he was a disabled person, right? But he was so funny. And I told him, I said, "Well, I pay for your uniforms and things like that and help the league. And I bought, the Space Invader machine. That's from me. I bought a tabletop machine thing for them, those tabletop
Yeah.
games, like proper professional one. And the guys in the office wanted to keep it. I had to fight them to get it out of the place." And I explained this to him. And then he went off and talked to one of his other friends. And then they were all talking. And then the game was great, by the way. The quality of the game was amazing. Because I was expecting like the old days where nothing was organised and it was really just going to be an event for the sake of having an event, where the kids didn't really engage and we didn't direct them or focus them or help them have a good time and stuff or handle the anxieties that a lot of these kids have. All that was managed really well. And I'm not saying everything has to go perfect for it to be good for me. But at the end of it, they were flocking to me to have their photos taken with me. They thought they were all MVPs because here's the big sponsor and he's come to watch the game. And it just lifted me up. So things like that, the things that get me are the things that I've been around. But the things I don't expect, I expected to be exhausted. To be honest, I was exhausted. I expected to watch the game and support the league as their sponsor. But it was just the fact that they were just so happy and had such a good time and felt really special. Everybody needs to feel special. And this is one of the reasons why we started doing holidays. I didn't want to do holidays at first. I looked at the risk and I thought, the risk is phenomenal. They're not even my clients. They're other people's clients. God knows how they've been treating them or how they've been addressing their issues.
Yep.
So you're walking in blind. So I have to do all these assessments on what the hell's going on. But then I thought to myself, everybody needs a holiday.
Yeah.
Now it was financially lucrative, right? Which was the part I really didn't think too much of. I was assessing risks. And another thing that I love now, I sponsor a number of lawn bowls. The old ladies doing the lawn bowls.
Yeah.
Autistic kids love taking their shoes off and feeling the grass. I sponsor a number of lawn bowls places. So some of these things that I've always done in the background,
So
I'm trying to raise more awareness now because I want other people to do it. I want other people to get involved. I want other people to go to these clubs and say, "Hey, we want to support you." It can't just be us forever. There's companies that are 10 times bigger than us and they sponsor jack crap, right? And I'm not saying I want to shame them into having to do stuff, but get involved at some level, whatever it is. I mean, this year alone, we gave away 480 free meals to people that were handicapped that weren't eating. This is the first time I've publicised this, but this is the sort of mentality, if you can help, you should help. And I think it's been lacking. And I think in one of my posts, I wrote about the whole history of disabled people and how they were looked after. As I'm sure you know, it was very institutionally based. It used to be ladies at the church, the Christian churches who used to look after people. And people wanted more of a professional thing for their kids. Families that did have the children at home, the mum or dad would die. The other partner would be looking after the handicapped kid till the kid was 40. When they died, 90. That sparked a whole thing too, by the way, with aged care homes, about the rules about having people in there as well to have family members that were beside them and stuff. Because don't forget, back up till the 80s, aged care, if you're a husband and wife, you didn't even get into the same care home.
well,
Things
so
like that have all changed.
so with everything that you do, and you do quite a lot for your community, how do you not suffer from like passion fatigue? Because to be honest, with the people that we provide care to, our support workers, our families, and all the extra stuff that you do in between, how do you level it out so you're not fatigued.
You know, the only time I ever doubted myself, I was working 15 hours a day with clients, coming home, organising a statewide organisation. Let's call it what it is. It wasn't some local fish and chip shop I was organising. I'd had pneumonia for 3 weeks. I was still going to work, working 20 hours a day. And I was in the park with one of my clients. And this was a client that I spent 3 months getting them to sign. Another client in the system for a long time. The first word I taught this boy was ball, because he loved the ball. He was now having fun. We're at the park. He was on the swing. He was very safe. I was near him. And I put my head between my legs and just cried. And I said to myself, I said, you're going to do this or you're going to die. And I've never doubted myself ever since. Now, some call it stupid, but I just wanted to make a difference, and it drives me. I know it sounds corny to a lot of. I've had people say you're a used car salesman, but it's all real. I can prove it all. It's all genuine. I came from a very religious family. I'm not religious, but I have all those religious habits, and it was ingrained in me as a kid. And my dad used to have all these sayings: "Do one good thing a day, you can change the world," and, I've got stories throughout my life that have perpetuated this feeling. And there's one story that when I am tired and I feel burnt out, I draw on this story to keep myself going. I had a friend of mine, his wife asked him to leave. He couldn't have children. He was a very young man. I had 2 children. I was fairly young. I was living in an 11 square house, 2 kids, the sister-in-law living there. There was no space. He didn't know what to do. I said, come and live at my house while you sort stuff out. He was with us for 8 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks. Didn't ask for rent or anything. I was only $24,000 a year at that stage. Didn't ask for anything of him. And we did lose contact over the years, right? So that's life. And I bumped into him like 8 or 10 years later. And he was with this beautiful woman with a daughter. And he explained to me that he met this lady. Her husband had, I believe, passed away. And he fell in love with this lady, and he was a proud dad to the daughter. But that isn't what impressed me. What impressed me was this. Sorry, I'm almost crying thinking about it. He told me he was thinking of suicide. He felt
Yeah.
life was going to go nowhere. And just me being positive, giving him the sense of, here, you feed my kid the mushy peas and get part of it. Change this person's life. And I think about those unknown things that you do for people. Because you can, just by doing something positive, you can change someone's life. And those sort of people call them silly things, that's the sort of stuff that keeps me going. And trust me, working the insane hours that I did, and I had pretty much big health complications, relationship complications, all sorts of bad effects. But even now, when I see that we've helped someone, I've had people that tell us they aren't going to walk, talk, do nothing. And then the next thing you know, you see them doing something. But it takes, just like I take in my business approach, it takes a long-term view. It's not a short thing every time.
Are you obsessed with your business?
I try not to be, but yes, I am.
I am. So I get it. I find a lot of founders are obsessed with what they do, and that's why they go that extra mile.
I do try to delegate a lot more.
Yeah.
Especially with my management team. I try not to drain them, but I do try to so I have a rule now that 9 p.m., unless there's a super duper emergency, I'm going to try to do normal. I do try to have every third weekend off. And this 2025, I actually had some holidays, which I haven't had for a decade.
Where'd you go?
I went to Hong Kong, Japan. My partner's quite a successful person, and they had a seminar thing over there. So they said, you've always wanted to go to Japan. Let's go to Japan. So I spent 5 days in Hong Kong, 8 days in Japan. And then they had another business seminar in France, which was supposed to be for a few days. And I said, flying 30 hours for a few days, that's just ridiculous. And we saw France, Paris.
Yeah.
So, but I hadn't had a holiday for like a decade. The only holiday I had a week off when I had a heart surgery, and I was still working it up.
Oh, goodness.
So
yeah, you are obsessed with your business.
Yeah, and look, I know how crazy it sounds. I know how crazy it sounds.
Yeah.
And I am trying to have a life now. But don't forget, I started this with $112.
Yeah.
And I was eating once every third day. And here's the real funny thing about that.
Yeah.
I was often eating rice and beans, but I never lost weight.
Yeah. Sorry. How does that work? It's not fair, is it?
I don't know. So I've done a lot of crazy things, but
Yeah.
people try to call me out or they try to make you responsible for something. I remember early on when I was doing the insane hours, I had
Yeah.
uh, an OT. It was OT, I think it was. Oh, you've got to go there and do the Saturday because they really need the extra help and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no problem. What time am I picking you up? Oh, no, I've got commitments. I said, look, I'll do it for free. That's fine. But you're coming with me.
Yeah.
So I've never been, look, I'll help people and I'll be respectful. I really am. I know I'm hamming it up a bit, but I'll call it out as well. But I will be
Yeah.
your biggest ally to help people, and I'll be your biggest ally for you to be successful. So there's a flip side to everything, and I help a lot of people on LinkedIn. I
And it's
give
one of those
free
things
business.
when you've got me, I suppose.
Yeah, and I get asked all the time. People want to spend time with me telling them how to do things, and half the time I don't even bill them. Like I'm giving my latest book away for free as a pre-release because people want to know what it's all about. So I do try to give back. At the same time, I am obviously a business person and I need to survive myself. But I think if you conduct yourself, and I always say this to a lot of my people that work for me, there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything.
Yep.
You
So
know,
to get to your book, is it on your website? Just so anybody that's listening that would like to download your book, or is it on any other platforms?
no, you have to ask for a copy.
Ooh. And if you're okay with it, is it all right to put your LinkedIn in below the show notes so anybody that's listening can go to your LinkedIn, drop you a line?
Yeah. And look, the book came about for a number of ways. People were always asking me for business advice. People were always asking me, well, I've got a lot of diplomas and things, but I never went and got the traditional MBA or anything like that. And what I do works. And it's worked for a long time. I didn't invent all this stuff myself. This stuff's been around for ages. I think I call it the sandwich certificate. I'll explain what I mean by that. So what happened, especially in Australia, probably about 1985 or something. I don't know who it was, but someone in the learning community went to some senators and said, hey, we need everybody to have a certificate to cover our risk. It was nothing to do with learning, it was to cover risk. But these people wanted to sell their RTOs and make money. So you actually ended up having to have a certificate to make a sandwich, a hygiene certificate, right? So all these things are now become mandatory almost. I've got certificates in washing my hands.
Yep. That actually doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, you're right. There was.
I've got the nurse's certificate in giving medicine. I think a lot of it's common sense, but all these people that bang on about having an MBA or going to university, and I'll tell you, university's dead. Unless you want a profession where you're going to be like a doctor or something like that, or a civil engineer, for most things, my professional business advice would be to not necessarily have university as your pathway. I'm not saying don't do
Yeah.
it, saying look at other things, right? And I'm not a financial person, but people are constantly asking my financial advice. The world's going to change soon. And I've written articles and posts about it. So I give a lot of stuff away for free. I've had other people say to me, hey, give all your IP away for free because they'll still need to come to work out how to use it.
Yeah.
So I always thought of that. And the book was just a manifestation of getting people in line with how I think and not repeating the same questions over. Well, can I have 2 hours of your time to ask this? And then you repeat it to someone the next week. So I made the book deliberately that if you're a super business person, you can get something out of it. But if you're a newbie, you can go, oh my God, never thought of that. I teach this when people ask me how to run NDIS businesses and things. So here's one for free that a lot of people just don't think about. So let's just say you're a small company and you have 10, 20 staff or whatever the case may be. And I call you, I'm a support coordinator, and I say, I've got a really great client. I'm based out of, I don't know, south part of the city or whatever. And this client's way up the north part, right? Most companies will turn around and say, I can't service that client, right? Design this very simple thing I call linking, where I'll have a staff member, I'll run them in links where they work. Now, a lot of clients you get, they could be a 2-hour client, 3-hour
Yeah.
client, 4-hour client. I can run this person from 1-to-1 and they could work a 10-hour day. The benefits to me
Yeah.
is I got a very happy staff member because that staff member might be going doing uni part-time and only want to work 3 days a week. Well, they've done 30 hours. The other benefit to me is I build my range. I'm now in another area. So the next time someone asks for help out there, that person, I can maybe make their rings smaller.
Yeah.
I make the people that ask me to service a client want to talk to me more. Because they'll ring you up and go, "Oh, you only work in, South Yarra, is that right?"
Yeah.
Because they're used to hearing it. So I teach a lot of these things to people. Even it sounds basic, right? But if once you think of these things, you can be. I'm statewide because of these sort of things.
You know what? You just gave a name of something I did, but I never named it.
Oh, look, I come up with names for stuff all the time because I've never heard of it before.
I just didn't. Did something similar because I was really, for me, is once I knew what the support worker wanted, and then because you want to know why people work for you, right? It's not always income. There's a little bit to it that might be that they're studying to be a teacher, an OT, a speechy, all sorts of things in between. It might be that it is for money because they're saving up for a house. Once I find what they want, and this is like in provider land, what I want as a support worker and their ideal participant that they're willing to serve. Some people are happy to drive it and okay to drive it because I really enjoy working with that person. It's just really knowing everybody at play and the person that we do serve, knowing them inside out, that I can answer that and automatically know who is the best person for,
I've got
to
an
support
answer
them.
to that hidden question that you were extrapolating on. If you want to know,
Go for it.
staff want to at work 2 minutes from their house. I've had staff that would say, "Oh yeah, I'll work as far as the shopping centre around the corner." Realistic, right? Now in NDIS land, unless you're like a care team professional, you can't claim for those travel to work kilometres.
No,
Well, you can. I'll tell you how to do it.
go on.
The tax system. Know the tax system. I cannot give financial advice. I just want to make that really clear.
Yep.
So in the tax system, you can actually claim kilometres. I think it's up to about $8,000 or $10,000. I don't even think they ordered you anything under 4,000 or 5,000. I don't even think they ordered it because you can claim go to work. So talk to your accountant as long as it's legitimate and you can prove you
Keep
did
your
the
book, keep your logbook,
yeah.
have it available, do it online.
Before every tax year, we ask people to talk to their accountants about these sort of things. We have a news feed that we give to our staff. And the thing is, we also explain to our staff very transparently if we do linking, that we're always going to be looking for things closer to home or closer together. Because I may have a staff member where I can only give them that 6-hour shift or something, and they want to work, 12 hours or whatever. So we ask them to be patient. We'll start linking. They'll start doing their days. They'll get, often with the linking, they get a longer day.
Mm,
So that, that they're doing that sort of thing. And we have a lot of students that love it,
yeah.
They wouldn't want to work 3 days a week and then go to their uni the other couple of days or whatever and still be a
Don't you
really
get
good.
that really cool feeling because after they've finished their course and they're off in the world being teachers and speechies and OTs and everything in between, it was the time that they spent with us as an NDIS provider that they got those skill sets of how to talk to people in
Yeah.
people with
And they
disabilities.
respect
We
it.
are some of their best learning, that hands-on experience.
I have people now that did courses in the health industry and they still ring me up and ask for advice. I have one particular lady who helps people get jobs and things, get back to work from injuries. She'll still ring me and ask me, how do I do this? Or, and she tells me the best time she had, and she loves her job, don't get me wrong. The best time
Yep,
she had
would be that hands-on experience.
was working with us and learning. And, I went to a company. I won't say their name without their permission. Very big company, much bigger than mine, and they were super excited to see me. Like I went
Yeah,
in there for just a quick catch up. Like I'm talking out the door, excited to see me. You would have thought I was a movie star, and I wish I could be. It would be nice, but. They said, "Oh no, we've got one of your ex-employees who's now one of the management team here, and they haven't shut up because they heard your name and they haven't shut up about you coming down." So I got superstar treatment because every bit of information that I freely gave this person
mhm,
when they did work for me led them, and I didn't have a position for them at that time. So they didn't stay with me. I always try to train people to replace me. I think that's the best way as a leader. Train people that they're
yeah,
better than you, that they can replace you because stunted growth has people disengaged. People that've got
yeah,
nowhere to go.
yeah,
So anyway, so he was so grateful. They said he'd been talking about the fact that I was coming down for 2 days and wouldn't shut up. So that's why I got the
yeah.
superstar treatment because I said, "What's going on, guys?" Like they're giving me chocolates and it was like, I mean, I know how to, have people come over and have a cake and a coffee for a business meeting or whatever, but this was like really next level. And because of that, now this company, and they shouldn't do this, but I do these sort of things to build relationships. They're going to put me in touch with a hospital. Now, hospitals like the holy grail of revenue streaming for people in allied health and our industry. If you
Yeah.
can, in with hospitals is impossible. It's almost like you have to buy them a house. I'll give you a house if you put me on your books. It's that difficult. And I do have some avenues into hospitals and things, but that's another story. But the fact that this person wanted to introduce me to help my business
Yeah.
because I was doing look, I don't think I'm amazing. I was just doing the right thing with the staff member. You know, it pays dividends. And this is, again, long term thinking. You should be doing it anyway, but this is long term thinking. Make every single person that leaves your company remember, and this is a slogan I see and I hate it, but it's true. Don't have them remember you as the big wig guy and all that sort of stuff. Remember how you treated them. You'll see that on all the LinkedIn posters and stuff, but it's true. How you treat people, no matter what level, and this is, scaling up and scaling down in management, how you manage it. If I have a guy now that hasn't worked for me for years who still
Yeah.
rings me and tries to integrate clients to me, he doesn't get paid any money or nothing like that. And we're talking about, years down the track. And he's in a very big, successful, decent position. And that's because of how I treated him, how I trained him, how I acted. And don't get me wrong, because I'm definitely not trying to paint myself as a saint, because I can be very ruthless in business if I have to. If someone's doing the wrong thing by me, I'm not going to be I have this saying, I'm a pussycat at home, but I'm a tiger in business. And all I mean by that,
Are you a Capricorn?
no, I'm a Gemini. All I mean by that is one business skill you have to have, know when to be ruthless.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
not something people talk about, know when to be ruthless. Because
It's the standard you keep.
there are people out there that want to destroy you.
Oh,
Other business leaders, other companies, people that don't just hate the fact that they think you might even have some success they don't have. I have all the same troubles as everyone else, trust me. But people don't like it. And business leaders do it for money, power. You've got to be ruthless in destroying them. It's something no one ever talks about, but I'll talk about it because it's real. I always
yeah.
try to take the path of bringing people towards me to network, to work with me. And I don't try to destroy people for the fun of it, right? Because that's not having integrity. But every single business leader at some point has to be ruthless to protect their house, and that's the truth.
Yeah. I've definitely had some interesting people over my 17-year career in disability that, yeah, it's more politics than people.
And that's again coming back to the whole thing why I try to bring people into my network. I want to have better care team. And yes, there's a financial incentive because they'll think of me thinking, he is doing the right thing,
Yeah.
make it easy, but it it works. And I do the things that work, but I do try to build them on foundations that are going to last. Classic example here. I had a support coordinator beg me for work. I really need work, and then stole a whole heap of clients off me.
Yeah.
Now, word got around and she wanted to get in with a big housing company and she would have made she would have made millions of dollars, right? And because she did the wrong thing to me, I was ruthless, and I don't like to be ruthless, but this is a whole thing about, thinking long term. And I find so many business people these days think of the short term dollar and they'll burn you for it. And, well, I'm going to make dollars out of this client. I'll just screw this person over, but they forget that people that are long-term thinkers in business, it will have a ramification.
You know what's interesting? Because I was talking about this the other day that when it, like with people that we serve, we talk about, there's for every action, there's a reaction and there's a consequence. But it's the same thing that goes for business as well. Every action that we put and what we put out
Sure.
there can have a reaction. And if you haven't got the vision or the foresight to see the future of what that could actually happen to you, like that, you make me worry. That yeah, I,
Well,
I try to not do business with people that can't foresee a reaction from a bad
yeah, and look,
thing they do.
that's exactly true. You can avoid
Yeah,
a lot of those problems just by being a good human.
yeah,
That's what the one golden rule I actually have in my book. The most famous golden rule of all is do unto others as you have them do
yeah,
unto you. And I explained that you may think there's a financial reward, but if you deliberately, I actually use the word screw over in the book. If you deliberately screw over someone, they will remember it. They'll remember. Look, people can make mistakes with me, and I hold no
Yeah.
grudges, right?
Yeah.
But if people deliberately try to do stuff to you, people remember it. And you may not think they're a big wig now or higher up the corporate chain than you, but when they get there, they're going to remember you. It won't be a very fond memory, and it won't be a very fond experience for you because, like you say, there will be, for whatever action you deliberately did, there'll be
Yeah.
a reaction.
This is what I do. There's people that
Come
I've
on,
met
tell me.
during a period of time, and it's like I visually put a sticky note on their forehead, and it's like a little remember. Yep, I remember what you did and how you acted towards this person that we serve, and it wasn't with their best intention. And you remember that moving through because it is a small sector, and we all network with each other. And if I've got that, I know that's not a person that I would support somebody to use in the future. And that's across all parts. It's not just support workers.
It's
It is
any
providers, it's allied health, it's the doctors. There are people that I was like, "No, I remember that situation, how that didn't serve that person to have a fullness of life."
Well, look, I try to balance it, and this is another one of my golden rules, is
Mm.
to only ever try to be better than yourself. Sometimes in business, you must outperform other companies. That's the reality. But if you focus on, rather than just tearing people down for the fun of it, to focus on being better than yourself, that's a real key to success. And there's a very old saying that we've all probably heard: success is the best revenge for these sort of people, because it's the
Yep,
thing that hate for you to be successful because they were jealous of you in the first place in many cases. But really keep it balanced with the fact that the only person you should really be trying to get better than is yourself. Keep it grounded. Having these tiff wars is a lot of waste of time and resources. It can
it
backfire
is.
on
It
people,
is
but sometimes
100%. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes you've got to understand that if you deliberately do the wrong thing down the road, when someone says, "Oh, do you know James?" It might not be classic example. I went to that office and they were just giving me chocolates. And now if
Yeah.
I was nasty to that person and ogred over them and stuff, I may not have even been invited down there.
Yeah.
So it's the cosmic law of the universe, I think, by just trying to do the right thing. I'm not spiritual, but I think that's just how people work mentally and psychology behind it. And I use a lot of psychology. Read the book, you'll hear a little tidbits of how I use psychology to get people to do what I want without them even knowing that I wanted them to do something, or made them think something was their idea, or how I made them feel comfortable with me. So there's a lot of things you can do, and I teach this in the book. There's a lot of things you can do or know, but if you come from the right place and even put all that aside, you'll still often have the success. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, no, yeah. We have covered a lot in this episode.
I'm trying to give
Like,
you
I
10
can't.
podcasts.
Oh, no, you've given me heaps. Thank you so much for tonight's podcast. I can't wait to deliver this. I'm going to press the red button, so I need you to stay on the line so it uploads. And
I
I've got to
just hope
grab.
someone does.